This is Phil Chalmers, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I love being a podcaster, Phil. You're a podcaster. You know what this is like. I've met Shelley, who I would never know otherwise, through my podcast. And Phil and I were talking about you, Shelley, before you got on, and I was trying to decide how the heck we met. I mean, it makes sense that we know each other, but I don't know how it is. But it's just been so wonderful. We've actually met face to face. And it's just neat to be able to do these things. And now we're about to talk to Phil because of you. So before I did anything with Phil, I wanted just to slow down and say thanks. One of the benefits of podcasting is you meet these incredibly fascinating and wonderful people. And I count the both of you in that in terms of enriching my life. So thank you both for coming on. Shelley, thank you. And then tell us why we're talking to Phil.
Yeah, so Phil and I have been friends, and to be honest, I don't really remember how we met as well, but we've met in person, and Phil has done some really amazing education across the country about this topic, and I have been privileged enough to be in the room a few times when he's done it and learned a lot. So I just like bringing cool people together. I am interested in this topic as well, from safety and security. Pete, your background is really interesting. Phil, yours as well. So when you can bring, like you said, all these people together, I think everyone learns and everyone grows, and it's just fun to do cool shit with cool people.
Yes. Well, I guess Phil, give us your basic bio just real fast so everybody can get caught up. But we're talking true crime today.
True crime. I've been talking to killers for 35 years. I grew up in a troubled home myself, dysfunctional home in Cleveland, Ohio. Poverty, abuse, dysfunction, and I kind of felt a connection to killers. So I started talking to killers 35 years ago, and started going to death row 30 years ago. So for 30 years, I've been going to death row, interviewing teen killers, school shooters, mass murderers, and serial killers. Lately, I've been focusing a lot more on serial killers, and I've been talking to the who's who of true crime killers that people would know and watch on Netflix and all that stuff.
It's remarkable, and people like us that go out and interview people, whether I'm, a spy or a podcaster, you do start to build up a body of knowledge for like the general theme of something, and you become a pretty powerful mind in that space. But it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's part of the question here. It seems like there are so many variables to why a person lusts after murder. Is that a correct assumption, or can you really generalize this and get a pretty good feel for most of them?
There's different types of killers, right? So like the teen killers and the school shooters, I pretty much figured them out. I wrote a couple books where I kind of like teach law enforcement, social workers, school personnel, how to profile, identify a dangerous individual. So that's pretty easy. There's 13 causes, 20 warning signs, 6 triggers, bing, bang, boom. It's pretty easy. And my research has stood the test of time. Serial killers are a little different. Like serial killers are really different. Everybody tries to jam serial killers into Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy. And there's 3,400 serial killers so far that we know of. And man, they're all very different. So there are some little things you can look for. There's some traits, but they all kill for different reasons: anger, lust, sex, crime, racism, mental illness. There's a lot of reasons why people kill.
I have a question when it's appropriate, but
it's always appropriate.
While you're talking about like the reasons, as someone who's very interested in female security, and we're often the victims, I've listened to all of the podcasts, and you're right. There doesn't seem to be anything that you can take away from it to avoid being on the hit list, if you will. But that's me. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations or advice for women that you've heard this like kind of trend through these individuals? Like, hey, ladies, just never do this or do this.
Well, the average serial killer is looking for easy prey, which is the sex industry, sex workers, drug addicts. Those are the easy ones that they can get. So don't get involved in sex work. Don't get involved in drugs. Don't buy or sell drugs. Don't take rides from people. Don't call my trucks at truck stops. You eliminate that stuff from your life. Then you're basically, I'd say you eliminate 50 to 60% of the killers. The rest of them might just latch on you on a chat room. a website, a social media page, and they'll start stalking you. Then it comes down to security, like personal security, right? I always tell my audience there's 3 things you need to have to keep yourself safe in your home. And I always tell people you have to have 2 of 3, a gun, a big dog, or a security system with cameras. And I think you need to have, I always tell my audience, you need to have 2 of those 3. So a gun and a dog, a gun and a security system. If some people are like, I'm not a gun person, then big ass dog and a security system and cameras, that's if someone's after you or someone's just trying to take advantage of you and random crime.
Thanks.
I would add to that. I actually had another one of Shelley's friends on the show the other day, Clint Emerson, and he said, get yourself some bear spray because you get some rain.
Yeah.
And just blast him at 30 feet. Be like, you want to come in? And I've got a gun and I've got a dog.
Well, and he also talked about oven cleaner and wasp spray that really, they're very everyday things you just would never think to use like that. But like those improvised types of weapons, a flashlight is always something that I found that I could handle in any situation, which is, just the blinding technique to put it in their eyes. But yeah, I mean, it's thinking on your feet really and having the confidence to do something in the moment.
Or light and lighting up your property. We have spotlights in our yard. So we're pretty, because of what I do, I'm pretty crime prevention oriented and very careful with my wife and I. So we have all the bells and whistles.
When you say that, how prevalent is a violent crime like that? I mean, someone coming into your home and attacking you. I mean, that statistically has to be on the order of a tree falling down and hitting you and killing you. It can't be that often, right?
Yeah, no, not as long as you don't live in the inner city, the urban area, as long as you're not involved in gangs, drugs, drug sales. Again, stay away from those activities, and it makes you much less a chance of being. Most of those kind of crimes, literally, are either they're connected to drugs and gangs, or they're connected to domestic problems. So you're messing, you're dating, you're married to the wrong person.
Has any of your work made you a target?
So far, not yet. Thank God. I hope I'm never a target. I deal with a lot of really, really bad people, and I guess I have a level of respect. They respect me. I respect them. I don't do them dirty. I treat them right, and you never want to get a serial killer pissed off at you. A lot of people are like, "Well, they're locked up forever." No, they're not. They have a lot of friends on the outside.
Yeah.
These guys are really connected.
And most murder. I mean, most criminals in general get out at some point, so.
Yeah, most, not the ones I'm talking to. Most of the guys I talk to are death row or got life. So I don't want to interview anybody that's getting out. That's my
I wanted to ask you too, like one of the things I've noticed from the Prison Chronicles and talking to these guys that have murdered someone, and these are usually like crime based on like gangs or some kind of passion moment. But the one of the obvious denominators I noticed was being abandoned as a kid or very poorly raised, drug abuse, like you said, or some kind of physical abuse, sexual, mental, some kind of like, these are people that get damaged heavily because they're little kids and they just don't have a chance to deal with that. And I know like the hippie in me is like, can't we find these kids and protect them? But in reality, you can't, as a government, do that in any kind of way that makes sense. But have you come up with any kind of answer for that? Like, how do we identify kids like this? I mean, if someone's got borderline personality disorder, the worst thing you can do is diagnose them because they'll reject it in a second.
Well, they'll own it.
Yeah. I mean,
there's that too.
I have the causes of what creates violent kids. And I think that's a really good gauge of what creates violent men. Most serial killers are male. But yeah, dysfunctional, abusive home is number one. Number 1 and 2 closely are, abusive, some kind of abuse growing up, or having no father figure. A lot of the connectors of all these killers is they didn't have a dad. That's a big one too. Most killers have grandmothers and moms. But you kind of walk through it. Mental illness is a small part of it. Fascination with it, some kind of a sexual thing, violent entertainment, obsession with death, guns. A lot of the serial killers they're early on, they're addicted to not only pornography, but voyeurism. So they'll get tired of their pornography and they'll put their phone down and they'll go out and look for real people, looking through windows and stuff like that, going into homes, stealing underwear, trophies, stuff like that. the first three behaviors that we look for as far as you might become a killer or serial killer: cruelty to animals, abuse and torture of animals, bedwetting in the teenage years, fascination with setting fires, like Son of Sam David Berkowitz used to do, burning shit, blowing shit up. And I had that fourth behavior as peeping Tom. When you put your phone and computer down and you go out to look at real people, that's a whole nother level of scary, man.
What's the bedwetting thing? Like, what's the underlying of the bedwetting?
Yeah, I think it's called urenesis. It's something you can't control. It's like an emotional thing. And there's two sides of that coin. On one side, if someone's defecating or wetting their pants at school or in bed, it could be a sign of trauma, like they're being molested, abused, something's going on in their life. Or on the flip side, they might be considering violence. There's something not right with that person. If it's not a physical condition, it's something bad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that, though? I mean, like if you're an administrator, if you're a parent, if you're a friend's parent, and you notice these signs, I mean, there's only so much you can do. The kid can say, I just waited too long to go to the bathroom. Sorry. I mean, like, it's just so hard. Like, you can't stand there and say, damn it, they're going to kill someone,
You try to intervene and try to find out why these kids are doing what they're doing. I've got this cool part in the back of my book. You probably can't see it here, but it's called The Interview, and it's 35 questions that you ask a kid. So instead of just saying, hey, kid, are you thinking about killing someone? No. Okay. Have a great day. It's like, have you ever done this? Or why are you doing this? Or what's going on at home? You kind of interview them. And then you talk to the parents, too. Now, a lot of these troubled kids have troubled parents. So people ask me, is it hard to help these kids? Yes. It's hard to help troubled kids. It's hard to help potential serial killers because a lot of times their parents are just as, is this an R-rated show or PG?
Say whatever the fuck you want to say.
Because the parents are just as fucked up as the kids, right? You're like, oh, we're going to help Billy. Have you met fucking Billy's parents? They're insane. So, it's hard to help these kids. We can try to help. I help as many kids as I can. I assist law enforcement. I assist school administrators, and I do a lot of work. But can we save them all? No.
How effective is peer-to-peer? Like, how much do we talk about kids to recognize these signs and signals? And that would they be more effective if they understood it, or is that not a good approach?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do school assemblies and talk a lot about bullying. Like those kids were giving these kids a trigger to commit violent acts. So I would really be really strong against bullying. But those kids, a lot of these kids they just need a friend. But adults can do that. Adults, teachers step in. And my wife's a teacher, so we talk all the time. When you see a kid acting out or doing something, become their friend. Talk to them every day. She had this one troubled kid. We just moved from Florida. She had a really troubled kid. And I just saw her make a point every day to talk to that kid. And probably she was the only person that talked to that kid every day. How you doing today? And he loved cars, so she would talk cars. And I used to give her stuff to give him with cars. And that's how you do it. It's
show interest.
Yeah, when my school shooters, we talk to them. They call in during my live shows, and we interview them. And they're like, if just one person would have taken an interest, I might not have done it.
What percentage of school shooters and or serial killers, and there might be a different statistic, are girls, school shooter, women, serial killers?
And I'd be happy to cover all these kind of things for you. So 90% of killers in general are men. 90% of killers are male. 93% of serial killers are male. So even more serial killers are male than regular killers. At the same time, there's been 3,400 serial killers. So that means there's over 300 female serial killers in American history. And you had said something about the victim, like, women are victims. I used to think serial killers are men, victims must be female. But Shelley, the truth is it's 50-50. If you look at all serial killers, guys are just as likely to become a victim of serial killer than a male or female. It's 50-50. Like, Dahmer kills men, Gacy kills men, many serial killers. William Bonin out by you out there in California, William Bonin, the freeway killer, killed little boys. So a lot of males are targets too. Do
the women kill women or tend to kill men? The women serial killers. Do you know? I mean, you might not know that. I was just curious.
I don't know the stats, but I'll just tell you in general, Eileen Wuornos shooting men in cars is very rare. Usually women kill elderly patients at a nursing home or hospital. They kill their spouses and they kill their children.
Oh.
One of the things that Honoré Vachon is a guy who was a gang member in Sacramento, walked into a house one day to go kill a gang member and killed the mom instead with him and his friends. Anyhow, I asked him, like, why go down this path? And he said a couple of things really important. He said, I had this dark companion that was there just leeching out my value of life all the time. Everything I was taught was to devalue my own life and everybody else's life. And so to break that, what does it take? And he said it took three extraordinary things: an extraordinary person, extraordinary effort, and an extraordinary circumstance. Because you can put two of those three together, I wouldn't have cared. I would have kept going.
Yeah, I mean, it takes somebody to intervene in your life when you're heading that direction. Like one of these guys, the guys I'm talking to now, they had no hope. They were dealt such a bad hand that the fact that they're in prison is no surprise. So, what do you do? And we could talk about a lot of issues like gun violence. The politicians like to talk about gun violence. So when we talk about gun violence, let's face it, in America, it happens in urban areas. 80% of gun murders happen in big cities like Chicago, Baltimore, Houston, Cleveland. So treating that is going to cost a lot of money, time, and effort to try to reach those kids who are in a very bad situation. And unfortunately, we're not doing that in the United States.
I was interested when I listened to your podcast, just the cavalierness of some of the interviews. It was like you and I having this conversation. And do you have any insight as to kind of what it was like talking to some of those individuals during, like when they were just talking about killing? Oh yeah, I've killed 14 people, and they just say it as if they ate 14 tacos, like with that same kind of level of.
Yeah. So the podcast Where the Bodies Are Buried, I did 6 episodes on that. You can listen. You can binge watch all 6 episodes or listen to it.
And I highly recommend it.
The first 2 guys were kind of guys I've known for a long time. William Clyde Gibson and Elvis Colvin. And yes, they're pretty cavalier about what they did, and they're pretty open to talking about it. So not super normal that they would do that. Like a lot of the guys don't want to talk about their murder. I have to pull it out of them, and I have to beg them to talk about it. So, the thought is, serial killers, like they want to be famous and they want to brag about their murders. No, they don't. They don't want to be famous. Elvis Colvin has turned down 48 Hours, Dateline, 60 Minutes, everything. Most of them don't want to be famous. They just want to kill people. That's all they want to do is kill people. And they don't even care about talking about it. A few get excited about talking about it, but it's rare. Mm-hmm. It's rare. Most of the guys are super normal. If anybody calls in right now during this interview, I will take the call from prison. And you could just hear him. Last time I was doing this, the guy that killed Jeffrey Dahmer called me. He doesn't talk to anybody. But, they seem normal. You would never know they're serial killers if I put them on with you guys. You'd be like, who is that? Is that your friend? Is that a pastor? No, it's a psychopathic serial killer,
I'm not going to lie. Like, I look at truck drivers, like when I'm driving now, I'm like, ooh, what's his story?
There's a lot of serial killer truck drivers.
Uh-huh. And I'm on the road a lot, so I'm very cognizant of that when I'm driving back and forth.
Yeah, so the reason we talk about the truck driver thing, it's a very easy, it's a great occupation for a serial killer, right? Mm-hmm. You drive into a truck stop, a woman comes and knocks on your door and crawls into your vehicle. Oh, that was easy. And then when you kill her, you can drive 3 states away, dump the body, drive 4 states away, dump the clothing.
Yeah.
Very tough to solve, mobile crime scene, very hard. So there are I think there's at least 50 to 100 serial killers operating right now in the United States. And a lot of them, a good chunk of them are truck drivers.
But if you're stopped at a truck stop, like if I have to stop for some reason, it's not likely they're going to engage me. It's more they just wait a little longer and somebody will engage them. Or am I vulnerable at that point?
If you're willing to crawl up into someone's semi-truck you don't know, you're vulnerable.
I'm not willing to do that. Am I vulnerable otherwise?
And I'd be like, no. Come in to meet me at the Burger King.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, as long as you don't crawl up into their vehicles, but if you're addicted to drugs, if you're in the sex business, a sex worker, you're going to do that, especially if you flash some money. And a lot of those guys have a lot of money, so they'll flash some money.
Yeah, damage attracts damage, and you can target that for sure and exploit that. I can see that all day long. What's another career or hobby that a murderer might self-select into because of whatever the nature of it is lends to their proclivity?
I would say any kind of a job that allows you to move around the community freely not tied to one location. So, if you had to go to work every day, 9 to 5, that's not a good job for a serial killer. Dennis Rader worked for the city. He drove around Wichita all day and wrote people tickets for barking dogs and shit like that. He also worked for ADT for 10 years. Check this out. Shelley calls and gets ADT because she's freaked out about the BTK Strangler. The BTK Strangler shows up and puts her sister. It happened.
And you say that while I have a service person in my house as we speak.
See?
And no shit, he's upgrading my security system.
Yeah,
I am not lying right now.
Like says Dennis, run like hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so anytime you have a job, like the guy, the first episode, Clyde Gibson, he was a woodworker. So he would travel around and do wood floors. And another guy likes to cut trees for the power lines, but they have a little more of a freer schedule that they can move around. A lot of them need to be able to go pick up prostitutes at night. So they need that freedom and some proximity to where there might be prostitutes.
What about taxi drivers?
Yep, there's been serial killer taxi drivers, serial killer Uber drivers. Today with technology, it's harder to do it. Back in the day, yes.
In the earlier part of the 20th century, we had a lot of people that, probably were serial killers, like the guys who go multi-state bank robbing and didn't care too much about killing. I think about Starkweather and Fugate, they went on that kind of Bonnie and Clyde rampage. Mm-hmm. Is that era over because you just can't drive a state away and disappear like that? Or is there another form of that? Because certainly like that, I don't know how you would characterize that kind of killing, but it's shocking to know that you could drive up to a gas station and kill someone and then just drive away and no one's even going to be around for an hour.
It's not as easy, but it's possible. Ted Bundy moved around the whole country when he was one of the most wanted killers in America, and he moved around. He made it all the way from the West Coast to Florida. That's incredible. He went up through Michigan. He was everywhere. And so it's hard, but it's possible. It's possible.
You know what else I thought was interesting, just kind of going back to the podcast, is the sister of the victim that wanted to talk to the murderer. Like, that was courageous. And he, again, I wonder, did that give her comfort or was that frustrating? Because again, he was just so like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, you've lost your loved one and this person is just saying a word. Like, did that help her or did that kind of uncover the...
Wow. I took a lot of heat for that, by the way. I had a lot of haters that said I exploited her. They had no idea that she wanted to talk.
She asked for it, yeah.
She said, I want to talk to him. I said, are you sure? He's a psychopathic necrophiliac. Serial killer. And she said, yes. So I prepped him and I said, hey, don't be an asshole. And he was respectful. I don't know. Did she get what she wanted? She did. She thanked me and said it was nice to talk. She wants to see him face to face for some odd reason, which is dangerous in Indiana because when I go to see him on death row, I'm locked in a cell with him and he could strangle me before they get to me. There's 2 doors locked behind. I think that would be dangerous for her, but he wants to be executed, so that would probably help speed up his execution. But
yeah, there you go.
To answer your question, I think it was some closure for her. The problem with that case, Shelley, is the Evansville police dropped the ball. And what I want to say is a lot of times we think if we call with the cold case, they're going to come running to us and they're going to take our call. Do you know how many times I call police department saying I got a confession and they don't call me back?
Why would that be? Why?
They're not interested. They don't care.
That not even to close it and take it off of their, to get it out of their file?
No, they're so damn busy with other cases that they move. They're ready to move on. So, people don't believe me when I say that. I'm like, yeah, these guys don't even really care about this. They really don't. The Evansville. Here's the funny thing. People, we talk about this case. I got a confession on death row of a 20-year cold case in Evansville, Indiana. So all the killer said to me is, I'll confess. I'll lead you to buried evidence. I have buried evidence. He wouldn't tell me what it is, but I think it's either a knife or clothing. He said, and he's also got bodies buried near there. He's going to lead me to bodies. And I told the police department, I said, all you got to do is tell him you won't drag his ass to court. He's on death row. He wants to die. You don't need to drag him to Evansville, Indiana from death row just to have a trial, you know? He'll confess, he'll plead guilty, give another death sentence. This guy, I gave him the name. This guy immediately, one of the detectives drove 5 hours to death row, confronted him, took his DNA. He shut down, wouldn't confess anything, wouldn't talk about it anymore. Never going to lead us to any buried evidence. We lost 30 more confessions. It was over because of the way they handled it. So, Shelley, what I'm saying is the sister wants a full confession, find the evidence, and know for a fact he killed her. But the Evansville Police Department messed that case up, so she'll never probably get that. How
many serial killers will confess to murders they didn't commit, and why would you do that?
It does happen. You know who's famous for that is the cross-country killer. Henry Lee Lucas did that. Not many of them do that when I deal with them because I have a relationship with them. And I would pick up on that pretty quick, you know. The guys that I talk to, for example, the truck driver, episode 2, Delmas Colvin, we try to ask him all the time about murders that he may have committed. If he was like a psychopath that loved it, he'd say, yep, I killed her. Yep, I killed her. You'd be like, no.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah.
He's like, no, that's not mine. I only killed 47. I didn't kill 100, you know. But he could easily say he killed 100. So you kind of get a relationship with the guys, and you know when they're bullshitting you. When they're bullshitting me, I stop talking to them. And I got so many interviews that didn't make the podcast because I kind of didn't like how it went. But there are guys that I felt like weren't being honest with me, and I say, we let the one go though. Episode 3 or 4, John Big Rig Killer Williams. We let it go on just to see. My producers wanted the public to see how these guys are kind of dishonest sometimes.
Yeah.
Are they bored? Like, when you show up, it just gives them some. I mean, on the source side of things, right? You get guys that just want something to do. You know,
want somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
That's why they respond to me, because a lot of these guys. Well, first of all, we talk about serial killers. Serial killers are relatively unknown. We think they're famous. They're not famous. There's 3,400 serial killers. Between the three of us, we might be able to guess 10 if we're lucky, right?
Right.
They're unknown. They're not celebrities. A lot of these guys nobody will ever know about. So when they get a letter from me, they're like, "Shit, I would love to talk to you." You know what I mean? Dennis, this is what Dennis, one of the paintings, the drawings Dennis Rader sent me. This is Hitler, and this is when he was able to use his logo here. It looks like it's a breast, kind of a logo BTK, but he's very well known. He gets a shitload of mail. He loves to talk, so that's a different type of a guy. There's another guy that killed 6 women, and he when he was in court, he said, "Killing makes me happy." His name is David Bullock from New York. He likes to draw pictures of my wife, which is kind of he loves to draw my wife. So even though it's kind of creepy, I'm like, okay, what else you got? But nobody knows who he is, and he's famous. Killing makes me happy. But I've got a whole collection of things these guys send me, and right above me here, this little doll head you see is from BTK Storage Shed.
Oh.
And that was interesting because he sent doll heads to the police to taunt them. Over here is a necklace made by the Boston Strangler, which is a very rare piece of history there. But we got all kinds of stuff from this is a piece of cloth that covered Charles Manson's body in the morgue. That was given to me by his grandson, which is weird. This covered his dead body. We get a lot of teen killers we deal with. This is a kid killed his whole family down in Bradenton, Florida. He sent me a self-portrait, which I thought was pretty interesting. What do you think?
Wow.
Boy. So
yeah, my heart kind of broke when you interviewed the school shooter. That was like, he, with every effort he tried, his friends were really just kind of brutal and nobody believed him. And that one broke my heart as a parent.
A lot of people liked that episode. They liked hearing about school shooter. We interviewed a guy that killed his parents, and we interviewed a school shooter. And that was a very popular episode.
One of the things that came up repeatedly during the Prison Chronicles was the concept of everybody is redeemable / rehabilitatable. Doesn't mean you get better. Like, what about Charles Manson? And then the guest said, well, how many people has he killed in the last 40 years? He's in an institution. He's criminally insane. He has to stay there. However, now that he's got some full-time ability to work on himself and have others help him guide him through that, there is some form of rehabilitation. Can you rehabilitate a serial killer or even a mass murderer?
No, you cannot rehabilitate a serial killer. I don't think so.
Okay.
What about a school shooter?
Yeah.
School shooter, mass murder, possibly, yeah. Here's what I say. Anybody that gets involved in torture, sodomy, rape, dismemberment, beheading, I mean, some of these acts, I don't think there's any rehabilitation with that. I think it's so psychopathic and it's such addictive behavior that, like you say, they might stop doing what they're doing because they're locked up in prison. You let them out.
Right.
There's been over 70 serial killers we've released from prison, and they've killed again and went back to prison. So, yeah.
Well, the other point that he made is, how many people did he kill in prison? People die in prison every day. They get murdered all the time. And if you're not doing that, there is some form of control and rehabilitation. What about, we struggle with this child molester thing where are they rehabilitatable? I mean, they're not murdering people, so they get out. And then when they do get out, how do we rehabilitate us to withstand, like, this person is and I'm not trying to make any kind of statement, but you've got these two sides that need to be rehabilitated. Can a child molester reliably be rehabilitated, do you think?
I mean, I would never let my kids around them, no matter what.
Right. I mean, yeah.
But I mean, it's an addiction. So like murder's an addiction too. Like these guys are addicted to killing, just like a kid might be addicted to porn, or adult might be addicted to alcohol. It's an addiction. But it's one thing if you're addicted to porn or alcohol. It's another thing if you're addicted to molesting children or killing people. I mean, can you ever trust someone again? I mean, I don't know, man. There are people that have gotten out after they've killed someone and they've been successful in life, but depending on the types of crimes, like Shelley, you talk school shooters. Or you're being bullied and you kill your bully, or you're being molested and you kill your father who's molesting you. I mean, that's understandable. I mean, I don't think it's right, but I can get that, and they should go do 20 years and get out. Maybe they could be rehabilitated. But you're hunting people and just cutting their heads off and having sex with their dead bodies. I mean,
yes,
that's a different type of addiction.
And how worried are those guys about getting away with it? I mean, are they able to? I mean, obviously they're going to have a modus operandi where like this generally works, but are they trying to always improve their scheme so that they leave less evidence, or do they just not even care about that?
No, they
prey, strike, kill.
don't want to get caught because they want to keep killing. So, but most of them will admit, I knew eventually I would get caught. So basically,
do they look over their shoulder? Like, do they always feel like it's any moment they're going to get caught?
A lot of them do, and they know the end game is probably going to be prison eventually, right? So they know what the possible consequences are. Death row the death penalty does not stop them. Life in prison does not stop them. They are so into what they're doing, rape and torture and murder, that they're willing to take that gamble. So do they improve their game? Yes, they do get better as they go along. They leave less evidence as they go along. But at the very, very end, sometimes they get so confident, like Ted Bundy, that they just get sloppy. And that's how they end up getting caught.
And again, like, so going back to the female in Ted Bundy, because of his attractiveness, right? Like he was able to draw, I think, one closer to him that didn't necessarily fit that mold of the drug addict or the prostitute or, so, with that type of a serial killer, and as a female, again, I'm so glad you said, I have a German Shepherd, I have a gun, and I have a system. If I wanted to add another layer for the person does not fit the category of the at-risk female, what are three things that everyday vigilance thing that a female can do? Maybe it's not serial, maybe it's just to not be a target. Do you have any thoughts? And Pete, I know you have a background in this too, is help us with our everyday vigilance.
Wow. Well, anytime you interact with a stranger, you put yourself in a position of possible danger, depending on who that person is. A lot of men and women meet strangers at bars, go home with them. I just think, to me, if I'm doing it, I'm making sure if I'm going to be dating and stuff, I would be making sure I know the people. Somehow know them. Anytime you're meeting people online, or a lot of people sell stuff online and they have strangers coming to buy things. Very, very, very dangerous.
Right. Yeah, like the Craigslist, like make the transaction in a public place. Don't let them come to your house. And Pete, I remember you when you did your school assemblies, and you were walking a kid through the dangers of sharing too much, because you know, predators can backtrack, and where you're not giving them specifically your address, they can find you. Can you just give a quick example of somebody just changing this scenario to a dating site where, you know, you don't know this person, but you're giving this information that they can kind of reverse engineer to find you?
Yeah, so I give an example in my training today. I use an app called Periscope. It's a very popular app, and you'll see like a map of the United States, as you see here with red dots. Those are all people that are live right now. So you click on, you can click on there. You could watch someone, and if I had bad intentions, like I'm going to kill somebody today, I'm just going to click on this, and there's somebody live, right? So let's just say that I want that lady, right? So like a lot of these apps have the capability where you can actually drive to that person's location. I'm going to show you right now where it is. Give you an idea what it looks like. My internet will catch up here. Let me show you something. So yeah, so you watch a video and you're like, okay, I'm going to see if I can kidnap that person. And if you kind of look here, I've zoned in on the map of that blue dot, and it's kind of hard to see with the lighting in here, but you can actually see houses and the streets and stuff, and you can actually drive right up to that location. So I wanted to go after that young lady that I just showed you. I can get her. I can find her.
That's unnerving. And these are things I want my kids to know.
Yeah.
Let me add some context to this too. Yeah, your camera's trying to focus.
Yeah.
So there's a thing, especially with women, where you feel bad about protecting yourself, and so it's okay to defend yourself. And then, terrorism, murders, all that kind of thing. If there's any kind of casing, that's like the time to, make known that you are aware that they're there. It doesn't have to be like, ha, you're casing me. It can just be simply by just looking around more. And these things are things you have to practice by being conscious that you have something behind you, even if it's nothing. Just by turning around and looking. Like there's a really crappy part of town that I go through, and if I walk across this big parking lot, I will do a pirouette as I go, just so everybody knows I am looking. You can go get somebody else, but I'm the wrong guy. Yeah. And I've got something in my hand, and I'm going to brain bash you with it.
We call that condition yellow, being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. Make them want somebody else, right? And then, so if you can break that cycle of surveillance, if you can make them go, ooh, this person's too aware. But if they do come up, again, don't be afraid to act, and just like look. And if you are going to interact with somebody you don't know, it's okay to take a step back and have a 10-foot conversation instead of a 6-foot conversation.
Yeah, and we have to retrain our daughters, because women are conditioned to be nice. We don't want to be rude. We don't want to offend.
Yeah, it's not rude. It's
right, but that's not how ladies are.
Right.
And so when I give my talks, I love that you're saying it, because we reinforce it. And the one thing that girls and guys, but we are so head down. So there is an element of surprise at all times that you are vulnerable to, because you have no idea what's going on. So to your point, Pete, just by simply looking up and looking around, you are less of an ideal target, because they can't catch you off guard. They can't surprise you. They don't have that element of surprise, which predators use in their favor.
Yeah. And you could also like elevate your awareness, like by being aware that you weren't aware, be like, okay, that's right. I need to keep track of these things as I walk around downtown or whatever. And then also when you look up, just mentally identify what you see: blue car, red shirt, lady, whatever. And then go back to ignoring everything around you, whatever. And the other thing I want to add in there is, if you get to the point where you're not sure if your life is at risk, make yourself like a 3-foot circle. And if something enters that, be decisive. And I'm not saying like smash anybody that comes near you, but like if you feel threatened and you're inside, you can shout and say, "Get away from me." Yeah. And if they don't, then you go right to the eyeball, back of the head, and you just strike.
You guys can see this video. This is a bear standing there, and this walks out, and there's a bear right there, and they don't even see the bear. They walk back. He follows them out to their car. Look at it.
Oh my God, that's the bear.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
That's called white, where you're not aware of your surroundings. Mm-hmm. Things like that happen. Instead, your head should be on a swivel. I carry a gun everywhere I go. That's just me. To me, the best defense is having a weapon on you like that. Never let anybody know. Nobody would ever know I have it, but that's always within arm's reach of me at any time because of what I do. But today's serial killers, along with and this is the reason why I'm doing the podcast, Pete and Shelley, is that I want people to hear these serial killers and they're like, man, that guy sounds really normal. They do sound normal, they look normal, and they act normal. But there's a lot of myths about serial killers, and I do that in my training. I'm getting ready to do a big tour starting February, and we're doing the 10 myths of serial killers as part of the training. And here's a couple things that nobody knows. So serial killers, there's at least 50 to 100 operating right now in the country. They do use guns a lot now. So serial killers, the most likely way they're going to kill you is a gun, which is really weird. They do like to kill up close and personal, but they will shoot you. Most serial killers today are actually black males. People think that serial killers are crazy white guys. That's been the myth for many years. In the last 20 years, 60% of serial killers are black and only 31% are white. So really, the new trend is black male serial killer, and I'm talking to hundreds of those guys right now. But there's a lot of myths that we think we know these guys and we really don't. A lot of them, the white serial killers kill within their race. So if you were working a homicide case and there were 5 white females killed, you'd be looking for certain suspects. If there were 5 black children killed, you're looking for certain suspects. Well, white serial killers don't kill black victims. It's extremely rare. So if you have black children, you're hunting for probably a black male serial killer. At the flip side, if you have white victims, it could be anybody. And a lot of times the black serial killers fly under the radar. And I'm one of the only ones that talks about this because it's, people are really concerned about race, but I care about the victims, and nobody ever talks about the black females and the black children who are killed, except for me.
Can you be an active gang member who kill, like a hitman in effect, and not be a serial killer, or is that a psychopath's job?
No, we don't count gang members, Bonnie and Clyde bank robbers. We don't count hitmen.
Okay.
The Iceman, Richard Kuklinski. Serial killers are killing just because they want to kill. They're not really doing it for profit or to get away from bank robberies or gang members. It's really they want to do it because they love it. And so, eliminate that.
Have you talked to Charles Ng? Have you ever interviewed him?
He doesn't talk to too many people. I did get my hands on one of his little origamis, that's what he makes in prison. He makes origamis. But a friend of mine talks to him pretty often.
What's his story? Who is he?
A very dangerous. Him and Leonard Lake were a killer tandem. They would torture and kill and rape and bury, I think, kids, mostly young females, I think.
And they would kill the kids in front of the mom, and then make the mom beg for. I mean, it's horrible.
Really bad case, yeah.
Would we be better? I watched a movie the other day where a guy's got terminal cancer here in California, and he goes off to Solvang to get his euthanasia prescription, and he kills himself. Would we be better off with these serial killers just to leave that on their table every day, like anytime you want, just do everybody a favor?
Yeah, child molesters too.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Like, here is an option for you. I don't want innocent people to die, but we can't let these guys out. There's no way.
Yeah, people always go back and forth: should they be executed? Should not be? The death penalty is a kind of a controversial thing. Number one, it doesn't deter any crime, in my opinion. No. You can use it though to get people to confess, so that's a good thing. Number two, some guys are on death row who are innocent, so you got to be careful about it. You're executing it.
Yeah, I'm not saying death row in general. I'm just saying, like, this person's like the BTK guy. Like, hey, every day, anytime you want, here it is. Pill for you. Have a nice day.
Most of them don't want to die, which is weird.
Right.
The one guy got COVID in prison, and he didn't want to die. And I asked him the question during the interview. I said, "That's kind of ironic that you couldn't breathe. That's what you did to all your victims, women. You strangled them." And he's like, "Oh, I never thought of that."
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you what his status was, because I know that you did that interview when COVID was.
Yeah, we thought he was going to die, but he survived, and of course he survived, and
of course
he's doing well. But yeah, I've got a stack of letters, Pete, and these things come in just a little bit of what I get every day. Some of these are pretty big names. I mean, Tex Watson just sent me a letter. He's, as you know, he's from the Manson family. Charles Tex Watson was there the night that they did the Manson murders. we get a ton of mail, and it's a constant barrage of calls coming in, letters at my box. I email them every day. A lot of these guys have email, so we email quite a bit. And
so, do you respond to everybody who reaches out to you?
no, I don't like people to reach out to me that I haven't reach out to. So, like, some guy will be in prison, he don't want to talk to me. He gives my address to some other inmate, and he sends me a letter. That goes in the trash. Unless I really want to talk to him, I just don't talk to people that are unsolicited. I'm after certain people, certain targets. That's who I want to talk to.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Who do you want that you can't get?
Oh, who I want? I want Ed Kemper, who's about to probably die in California. Ed Kemper by you, Pete, Santa Cruz. He doesn't talk anymore. I want Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. He no longer talks to anybody outside of prison. I'd love to talk to what the hell's the guy's name that killed his wife and baby in California?
Scott Peterson.
Scott Peterson, yeah.
But he's not a serial killer. He's just like
he's just interesting. I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah.
But there's a few. Most of them, though, that I want I talk to the big names: BTK, Son of Sam, Charles Manson sent me Christmas cards. I mean, I have a lot of interaction with the big guy, the Boston or the Hillside Strangler up by you. But lots in Indiana, by the way, Shelley. So you buckle up, Buttercup. There's a lot of in Indiana.
Is there any in my backyard?
I just got a guy. He started writing me and calling me. His name's Eugene Britt. He killed a bunch of people in Gary, Indiana, and the serial killer in New Albany down south that killed from Evansville all the way to Louisville. So there's quite a few serial killers in the Midwest and Indiana. Chicago is loaded with serial killers. Chicago, and most of them are black males, loaded with tons. So
what is
Shocking.
Are you always allowed to get in? Like, if you were reached out to the federal prison, do they always allow you in?
So the way it goes, people say, how does this all work? So I have a letter that I've been sending for 35 years that works. So I send a letter out, and I just wait and see if they send a letter back. And you can't really see here, Pete, but I have 4 file cabinets stuffed full of serial killer letters, artwork, drawings, and everything. But they usually write, I've got a 50 to 70%, they're going to write me back. So I get the letter back, and I open it. So here's an example of, I'll just give you a real example. This is, let's see, this is the guy who's from Kansas, and I haven't even opened his letter yet. He is called the Slave Master, okay? His name is John Robinson. He's called the Slave, I don't know if it'll work here. John Robinson is Slave Master, okay?
Okay.
He says he's innocent, okay? He's innocent. So I'm not interested in that guy. Somebody that can't admit he can't talk about his crimes, I'm really not interested in him. But once I have a relationship and I think like we can do something together, then I allow them to call me. I don't let everybody call me because it gets to be annoying. Here's a call coming in. Oh, we got a call. We got a good one. Where the hell's my phone? This is the Zodiac copycat. I'll let them call me, like the Zodiac copycat.
Take the call. Let's hear.
All right. And
inmate at New York State Department of Corrections.
and then I'll start actually meeting them in person. So this is the guy that sent Zodiac symbols to the police. He was reenacting the Zodiac from California, and he shot and killed many people. Just walk up on him and shoot him.
You may start the conversation now.
Hey Eddie, how you doing? Good. I'm in the middle of an interview right now. I'm actually on a computer interview. But let me, while I have you, these guys are doing a great interview. It's a podcast interview with me. And I told them you were calling and I was going to take your call. So your name is, how do you pronounce your name? Heriberto Seda? How do you say it? Go ahead. And your last name? Seda. And your nickname is Eddie. Eddie, how many murders are you in prison for? What are you in prison for?
They charged me for 3 and a few attempted murders.
Okay. And then you sent some letters to who? The media or the police with Zodiac symbols?
To both, the police and the media.
Okay. And they dubbed you the Zodiac copycat, correct?
Yes.
And you got inspired because you watched a show on the Zodiac killer from California, right?
Yes.
And how did that inspire you?
because he wasn't captured, so that was like different than the other serial killers and stuff.
Okay.
And so I thought I could take his name and use it for myself. It would have magnified the situation more.
Okay.
He wasn't captured.
Right. Right. And today you're remorseful. I always tell people that serial killers are rarely remorseful, but you have some remorse for your crimes, don't you?
Oh yes. I mean, I can't turn back, time, but I regret what I did. But this is why I'm involved with God and religion, because it brings a lot of understanding of why I did what I did, and there's a way out of it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to finish up this interview, Eddie. If you can call me back in the next day or two. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, no problem.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
That's a psychopathic serial killer that'll walk up and shoot your head off. And the one woman didn't die, so he stabbed her 100 times to make sure she died. This is what he sent me the other day. This is his letter from Heriberto Seda. And I wanted him to send me a letter with all his Zodiac symbols that he used and his crime spree, which I thought was pretty interesting, and he signed it. But that's pretty interesting.
Wow.
You just talked to a guy who's a psychopathic serial killer. Now, he didn't have sex with his victims. He didn't have sex with the victims. He just went up and killed them, and he wanted the fame. And at first, they said the Zodiac's back. He moved to Brooklyn. And they finally figured out it's not the real Zodiac. It's a copycat Zodiac. But that's the Zodiac copycat, Mr. Seda.
But what was the profile? If you're just going to walk up and shoot somebody, like it doesn't matter if I have if I don't have a drug addiction. I mean, did he choose still that profile, or was it just random?
He would lie at wait. He would randomly just shoot the first person that walked up. He would shoot him. How sad. You walk along, boom. And he thought he was going to be tricky. That he made up these little guns. Pete, you might understand this. He didn't use real guns. He made his own like zip guns, Pete.
Sure.
Sure. And he would just manufacture a gun. But the funniest part is the riflings, even on the zip guns, connected it all together like the big dope, right? And so he's into that kind of shit, right? Like zip guns, and he's into that technology. So, Shelley, you haven't asked me this question. Why are they talking to you, Phil, as opposed to anybody else? Why aren't they calling in the Pete show, right? Why are they talking to me? Because I know what they want. I figure out what they want, and I give them what they want, okay? Some guys want some food. Some guys want a pair of shoes. You know what this guy wants? I send him all the time. He wants pictures of World War II aircraft. That's what he gets off on. He likes that stuff. How to build bombs, how to build planes, World War II tanks. He just asked me to send him pictures of some World War I military uniforms. That's his thing. And
how old is he?
How old is he?
He's like 53 or something like that. He's not that old.
I would say he's in his 50s. Yeah. So there you go.
And how long ago did he do his crimes?
You can look him up. Maybe they all kind of run together. 10, 15 years ago. Pete, you got a serial killer call. How you like that?
That's awesome, Pete.
That's pretty incredible. Actually, I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on the actual Zodiac killer, since that is someone from my hometown. Mm-hmm. And, probably, I'm assuming, as I make my call, probably got swept up in some kind of thing that either got him killed or put into prison. But every time they think they got him, kind of like Donald Trump, we got him. And then you're like, oh, no, we didn't.
No, they kind of think they know who did it, like a doctor's son or something. If you really study the case, they kind of think they know who did it, and he's dead already. That case will never be solved, and they kind of think they know who did it, and he's deceased. It's like a doctor's son or something. If you look at the theories.
So are your friends using their one? Like, how often do they get to call out, and like how honored are you that they're spending their one call to call you? And how long is it?
That guy was calling me when he only had 2 calls a month. They were free, and he would call me with them. So that's pretty interesting. Most of the guys have nobody. Their families are gone. Their friends are gone. I'm the only one. I'm the only person, their only friend. Delmas Colvin said that episode 2. You're the only. So I would say I'm the only guy he calls. And
how long is their call when they call?
The free calls are 5 minutes. If you pay for the call, they're 15 minutes.
And you still only get 2 though?
You get the state gives you 2 free calls a month, and I think you get 1 stamp and 1 letter to mail letter out every month, even those that are completely broke. But most of the guys don't work in prison, so they're broke. So me putting $50, $25, $50 on their books is a lot. It's like putting, if I gave you guys $1,000, you'd be like, okay, Pete. He'd be like, okay, when do you want to do the interview? $1,000 to us is like $25 in prison. I mean, it's a lot. So, I have that advantage. I use that to my advantage to get confessions, solve cold cases, find bodies, and bring closure to hurting families. And, Pete, I want to just say this. This is why I do this. I'm intrigued by it like everybody else. I'm interested, but I have pictures of victims hanging up here in my office that you can't see. This is Mr. BTK. Mr. BTK used to kill cats as a kid. He would strangle them and bind, torture, and kill cats and hang them. And later on, he would hang this little 12-year-old girl from a water pipe, strangle her and hang her. And I got these victims in my office for a reason. I never forget why I do what I do. I am not a fan of crime. I am a fan of getting to understand why they do what they do so we can stop more heinous crimes. And we do this for the victims, and I know you guys are in this for the same reason. We all care about the victims, and we all want to stop these crimes, and we want to try to do our part. So that's what I do.
One of the things I want to kind of close with is, as someone who would run sources, it's a similar thing. No one wants to get caught doing something illegal. And when you're trying to spy with someone, you just can't take a direct approach. And I think a lot of police officers are too direct. They get fixated on the object and they go straight in, like your example of the Evansville cop. Mm-hmm. And it's so much more effective to be deliberate and focused on trust and get them to, if I can get a person to care about me, even if they're a sociopath or a psychopath, I can get more done. And it's a more deliberate path. But I would suggest that what you do is more effective because you're more affective.
Yeah. I think it's the only way to solve these cold cases. Once a case goes cold, I mean, the old saying is like 48 hours, like, the show, the first 48. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's 48 hours, but I would say if you don't solve the case in the first month, it's probably going to go cold. Usually a suspect is arrested in the first, week. Like, you kind of know who did it. Once there's no connection between the victim and the killer, it goes cold, and usually it stays cold. There's right now there's 80,000 to 100,000 unsolved murders in the United States, and there's over 10,000 unidentified bodies. So we right now, and we get, I would say, of 12,000 murders a year, at least 3,000 go unsolved. So this number is increasing, 3,000 a year of unsolved cases, and the police have their hands full today. Detectives, law enforcement, investigators have their hands full. So I'm going to go a little backwards approach, and I'm going to start talking to the people locked up in prison. I know they've killed more people than the police know about. This is Michael Madison. Michael Madison is a serial killer from Cleveland. That's his bloody handprint. He sent me, and he, when I asked him, "You're in prison for 3 murders. Have you killed more?" And he laughed. He said, "We'll have to talk." So I just know that's the case, and my job is to get them to talk. And I take it one unsolved case at a time. And, you never know if law enforcement's going to work with you, but you do it, and you do what you love to do. And that's what I love to do. So I want to thank y'all for having me on, and love the good work you guys are both doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And then you guys can look, you can see, just go to philchalmers.com. All the resources are there. There are a number of books. If you go to the Amazon link, that helps us out and helps out Phil when you get the books. I know this stuff is fascinating to y'all, especially my folks in Benicia who love the Zodiac killer. But yeah, just in general, and I love to do this because we forget, but from all of us out here in society, all the parents of victims, everybody else, thank you for doing what you're doing. Because anytime you get one of these guys to admit to something, then we can validate it. I mean, it's just a little bit of relief in something that had none coming. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me on. I don't really do these interviews anymore, but Shelley said I had to do it. Here I am.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to sign this off. Stand by.
Thanks, guys.